talk through what we think is there. Okay, first slide. So where we started, this slide starts in 2014, where the current Tasmanian government was elected, and Tasmania had an unemployment rate of over 7%, so it was much higher than the rest of Australia. And since then, Tasmania entered the COVID-19 February 2020 with a much stronger economy, one of the strongest economies in Australia, and an unemployment rate that was below the national average. So in the first quarter of 2020, the Tasmanian economy was growing 0.6% of the quarter, 2.4% annually, while the rest of Australia on average was going backwards, was already declining. Okay, that's great. Where has the growth been? A lot of the strongest jobs growth that we've seen has actually been in caring professions. So things like carers and aides, disability services, aged care, those sorts of jobs, as well as health professionals, so reflecting our aging population. Some farming has also done well. So the Tasmanian farming sector has grown well over the last decade, with irrigation being a big source of investment in farms and other growth. And a few areas have actually had employment declines. So very recently, hospitality workers. So that's the COVID-19 effect, but we have seen them coming back. And some of these other ones have declined in overall terms, so inquiry clerks, receptionists, sales assistants, and personal assistants. But there's a lot of turnover in those roles. So even though they've declined in the total number of jobs, there's a lot of opportunities that are still coming up. So COVID-19, this shows how big the impact was on key sectors. So hotels, hospitality had a $266 million hit, fell by 63% in terms of demand. And then slightly sort of smaller effects going around. So transport, that would be sort of travel agents, flights, that sort of thing, also very heavily down. And then other ones, smaller and smaller effect. But there are some sectors that did not decline over that last quarter. So education was increased, communications, alcoholic beverages, people drinking in lockdown, insurance, and rent. So these sectors did not decline, they stayed up. So then we think, where are the jobs going to be, or job openings going to be over the next few years? So this is a work in progress, subject to change. So these are the different sectors that we're seeing as having the largest job openings coming up. And then these are the different jobs in those sectors. So the biggest sector that we can see is business services. So clerks, receptionists, contract and program administrators, and they are covering a broad number of where they actually support other industries. And so there's lots of job openings and there's a lot of turnover in those jobs. So hospitality is another big area. So while it was hit very, very hard, we've seen the jobs coming back, and we're thinking that because there's high turnover, there will still be a lot of job openings coming up over the next couple of years. Mm. And it's the same with retail, driven by turnover. So in transport and logistics, so we're seeing quite a few opportunities in truck drivers, but also in other parts of the delivery. Part of that is that there's got an aging workforce and they're retiring and they need to be replaced, but also with increasing online deliveries, so online shopping and requiring deliveries, we're seeing a lot of jobs in that area. So then we get to construction. So there's been a lot of demand for construction in Tasmania. That was part of why we had strong growth over the last few years, a lot of investment happening. And we see a lot of jobs in those spaces, but they're at different skill levels. So building labourers might be relatively low skill. Carpenters and joiners might need a 4-year apprenticeship. Four year. And then you get more experienced role like construction managers, where they may have come in from other areas. So they might have been a builder and then become a construction manager. And then you also get working with some of these other roles, which are more general, but are also supporting the construction industry. And then we see the age and disability care workers, health professions, social services that I mentioned earlier as being a big source of growth that we've seen in the past, and we're expecting to continue in areas like age and disability care, nursing support, laundry, nurses, welfare support workers. So while we've got the short-term effects, we're expecting that COVID-19 is also going to have some long-term structural effects on the economy that are going to create changing opportunities into the long term. So might think about resilience. So when the COVID-19 happened, we couldn't get some of the things that we wanted. So think about we then change our manufacturing to be able to create things like hand wash. We increase, and we think that will continue in terms of we're looking at more manufacturing of key things to make sure that we can make them in Australia. Remote living and working. So in the sort of the 3 months of the shutdown, we probably got as much sort of technological change in terms of how people work and where people work and the technology they use as we would normally have seen in a decade. So we brought forward a lot of technological evolution in how people work. We saw that in 3 months, what would normally take a decade of change, it only happened in 3 months. So there's a big change in a short period of time in terms of how people work. And that will then create opportunities in technology, remote working, people changing the way their houses are designed to make it easier to work from home, all of that sort of change. So, and it may have unusual effects. So TAFE, the vocational training provider, has spaces in interior design as a course. So we think, well, will this be benefited by COVID-19? Maybe. If people are looking at their homes from being locked down and say, I want my home to be more beautiful, maybe they'll want interior designers to help them do it. So maybe there'll be unusual jobs coming from that. And then we get the government responses. So often government, in terms of slowdown, government will spend a lot of money on infrastructure and construction, and that will have a very, very long tail. There's a long time to deliver these projects. And so it's going to create jobs over a long time period. People may be starting their career now and still have good jobs in a decade. But there are two opportunities I'd like to talk about now. One, so a project work on is energizing Tasmania. Energizing Tasmania. So we're expecting millions of dollars of investment in wind turbines, in transmission towers, looking at the Marinus link to connect Tasmania to the mainland to export renewable energy. And it will take a long time, but thousands of jobs anticipated over the next decade. The Australian government has given the Tasmanian government $16 million to prepare the workforce for the Energising Tasmania projects. And part of that, we'll be looking at free training, training the trainers, and workforce development to make employers ready to take more workers. So TasTAFE has courses that we have funded them to provide free now in electrotechnology, but there will be jobs available in lots of different areas. So it is not just electricians, it is also planners, schedulers, people driving machinery, all kinds of jobs that are required to support the projects, not just electrical. And in the short term, the COVID-19 has disrupted the workforce that we need for picking the harvest. And we need thousands of workers in the next 6 months to make sure we can bring in the fruit. It's a big government priority and we need many workers. So what do we see overall? We see healthcare and health and social services. So your aides, nurses, those sort of things. We saw a lot of growth in the past and we're expecting that growth to continue. And the sort of the skill levels in that range cover the whole gamut. So from fairly low skill jobs all the way to degrees, nursing, doctors, and specialists. So then we talk about construction, infrastructure, and electrotechnology. So we've got a long pipeline of projects that require a lot of workers. Infrastructure. and the jobs are not just in sort of building things or electricians, it's also in receptionists, planners, schedulers, all kinds of roles, particularly those that might be using new technology to work with the planning for these projects. So there's a lot of diverse range of roles. And finally, agriculture. We've seen strong growth in the past in roles, pickers, farmers, farm managers going forward, but we need pickers now. Thank you. Any questions?
My name is Lucy Book. I have a husband who is excellent in farming.
And he very hand for the wrap up for the building.
Can we get in?
Tôi chồng tôi ông Nguyên làm những cái nhạc kiếm và những cái dụng cụ bằng gỗ, ông mới làm sản phẩm rất là giỏi.
And he's also have another skill is in the carpentry and is in the making, design the glass house and building the glass house. It's excellent.
Very good.
Ông ấy hiện tại bây giờ là ông ấy làm vườn đấy là rất là đẹp và rất là ngăn nắp và rất là giỏi. Thì bây giờ tự hỏi tôi mới xem là có chỗ nào mà người ta cần đó thì làm ơn giúp cho ông ấy đi nào.
At the moment, he's managing the garden, the family garden very well, and so he really would like to find a job that doesn't know where he can find a job without following his skill, and he doesn't know where to find.
Well, there's Harvest Trail. I think there's a lot of Harvest Trail is a website where they're advertising for the agricultural jobs at the moment, and encouraging people in terms of the short-term picking and harvesting and pruning and all of those sort of farming sort of roles. I don't know whether they've got sort of more advanced ones, but usually you sort of start in, get people to know who you are, get people to know what you can do. They like the woodworkers, and then you progress from there once you have your people know you. Could you find Harvest Trail? Trail. No, AI. We got it right the first time. AIL. No. TRAIL. Yes. Yes. So follow the links, and there should be lots of jobs.
về làm vườn.
English very hard. Yes. Yes. But now is probably a good time because the more they need the workers, the more they think if he can pick, okay. And also, I haven't worked very closely with this space, but what I've heard is that sometimes what they do is they organise themselves into groups. So there might be some that have got very good English, and some that have got less good English, and sort of they translate. But as long as they all work hard, the farmer's happy. But also in greenhouses, advertise on Facebook. And
con nói thì đó con đang giữ visa tiếp viên thì con có thể là mở cái doanh nghiệp nhỏ này.
The other question, he said, at the moment I am reviewing on the student visa. So is it possible for me to set up one business?
Not my area. No, I'm not an expert on visas. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, not as government official, but make a little bit of money. Keep it small.
Is the only task step of the construction cost, or there is another institution in Tasmania of the construction?
So I know in terms of the Energising Tasmania, we've made available lots of money for different RTOs to bid for to provide free training in various courses, and TasTAFE so far has taken that up. Going forward, those options are still open. And there's going to be even more training coming through in a package called Job Trainer, where there'll be even more free training available for in different areas, including all the construction space. So it's probably a question of talking to TasTAFE or other RTOs, training organisations, and finding out what have they got, when is it starting, what can you do? Because we're happy pushing a lot of training out.
Ngoài Tết ra các bạn mỗi năm đào tạo nữa không về các cái này thì em muốn hỏi xây dựng thì có còn ở đâu đào tạo không thì vấn đề các bạn là bây giờ đi vào thăm cái tiếp cận nó có rất nhiều chỗ để đào tạo free nữa thôi, ở Tết thì cũng cho thì là còn có nhiều chỗ đào tạo miễn phí nữa thôi chứ không phải mất tiền nữa thì mình phải đi tìm nó ở đâu.
Although courses for Australian resident only, or can the international student apply?
Thì
Yeah. I'm trying to think, but I think some of the different ones will have different conditions on them, and so some of them may be Australian only or different visa classes only, as opposed to necessarily being Australian, non-Australian. And so visa classes will be important. And the other one is, I think the Energising Tasmania funding may have a different set of rules as well. But yeah.
Câu hỏi của con là cái này thì có áp dụng cho dân ước hay là cho học sinh quốc tế có được thưởng các cái đào tạo miễn phí này không? Thì ông nói là cái này thì cũng không biết được vì nó cũng có các cái điều kiện vào đấy khi mà mình apply có các điều kiện trong đó có điều kiện về visa và các cái điều kiện khác. Ví dụ như cái mảng về kỹ năng của ông như này nó vậy. Đấy, không biết cái mảng đấy của ông cũng có đào tạo không?
But in terms of the Energising Tasmania one, because we're looking for the workforce for those major energy projects, and we do have the funding available for the training, and at the moment it does not subscribe as much as we would want. I think if there was a representation from the Migrant Resource Centre or other people that we should expand the criteria, potentially we could look at that.
Cũng có nhiều các cái đề án, nhưng mà nếu cái đề án người ta lại nhìn vào thì là cái đề án này áp dụng cho đối tượng nào, ví dụ như nếu mai thì cấp center và contact người ta thì người ta lại mở rộng cái đề án ra để mời những cái đối tượng nào tham gia. Thế còn nếu cái đề án mà không có ai đòi hỏi gì thì người ta chỉ để đưa ra cái gọi là công cộng là nó là có cái đề án như thế thôi, cho nên là cái này cũng câu trả lời tôi nghĩ là cũng phải tìm hiểu sâu vào cái đề án câu trả lời.
Any other questions? I'm trying to think, maybe.
Còn câu hỏi nữa là bây giờ cái test ấy, thì có thể là hỏi mỗi test về là các khóa học mà international học sinh quốc tế có thể học được không? Không nói là học phí thì tức là học mà miễn phí thì ông nói là có rất nhiều khóa miễn phí mà chính phủ cho mà thì câu hỏi là liệu có học sinh quốc tế có được học những khóa này không? Thì ông ấy trả lời rất là chung chung, tức là maybe có thể, có nghĩa là mình vẫn phải tìm hiểu cụ thể chứ không trả lời cụ thể. Maybe.
Yes.
So, does Tasmania focus on interstate travel, or you actually concentrate on international travel?
It's both, but I'd say the main focus is probably, and certainly at this point, is going to be on re-energising the Australian market first, because at the moment we'll be seeing barriers probably for quite a while, and so when promotion starts, the promotion's first going to be on island tourism, then it's going to be Australian tourism, and then after that will be key international markets where we think there's going to be, I guess, reasonable visitation and reasonable spend. Also not my area. Don't email me. I'm too busy. I will really struggle to get back to anybody. However, I think I think we do have a number, and so if somebody has anybody here lost their job recently? Okay, so if you had lost your job, there is a service that is called Rapid Response which will provide a bit of support training, maybe put in contact with a career counsellor if you have lost your job, and that's something you can call. I think there's also Job Actives can provide advice if you're unemployed, and so unfortunately the services are sort of segmented to different groups. And I think we're also about to put up a website which sort of says which training organisations are providing which courses and things. But it's sort of, hopefully there's a sort of course counsellor or somebody that can, or a careers advisor that can provide a service. But I'm not going to have enough time to respond to the queries, unfortunately.
Có hỏi là cái có gì nó bắt đầu phát hiện lên thì có thể email hỏi hay không, là đừng có email cho tôi, đừng có email cho tôi mà cái nếu như mà đang có job mất job thì đi email cho cái có một cái nhóm, một cái team người ta làm việc về vấn đề đó, những ai mà mất job và đang có job thì chắc là vẫn là trong một cái mảng tư duy thì mất job thì người ta
Thank you. I'll get my flashes back. Yes.